Joined with Scott MacCoubrey from MacCoubrey Funeral Home in Cobourg, Ontario. Scott, as it stands today on Thursday, April the 2nd, what are the current rules and regulations that for a family to currently, or I guess you have to follow now when it comes to funerals?
Yeah, currently, and you're right to say the date, because these restrictions are extremely fluid. They're moving all the time. It was only a week and a half ago, I believe it was, the restriction was 150, and then it was 50. Now it's gatherings of 5, except funerals. We're allowed to have a gathering of 10 as long as social distancing can be done. So the room has to be big enough. If you're going to have 10 people in there, it has to be big enough for everybody to have that 2-meter distance.
With the 10 people, is that 10 people total, or is that just 10 family members? Or because I know with the current Ontario law, it's 5 family members that could be together. Is that an additional then 5 people that can come inside the funeral home?
10 people can be together at any time, not including funeral personnel. So that would include the minister, though. So if you've got a minister that is presiding, you could only have 9 other people in that room.
What ways are you now going or trying to go about to help families who are now grieving a loss of a loved one, to help them along this process? Because obviously this is going to be the new norm for the foreseeable future, unfortunately.
Mark, it's very difficult on the families. From the get-go, they're not allowed to enter the institution where the person has died. So they may have Facebooked with them, but they haven't been able to be physically with them during the time of death, up to the time of death. And now we're telling them they can't have a proper funeral. So this is not really helping the grief process. This makes it much more complicated. So we're trying to do what we can. We're using technology like Zoom. We're trying to stream funerals if that's what people want to do. We're bringing carloads of people into the funeral home at a time, and then bringing them back out, bringing another carload and that kind of thing. We're trying to do whatever we can. But the truth of the matter is, what we need to do is have the burial or cremation take place as soon as possible. We've been mandated by our registrar, the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, and the Ministry of Health, that we are not to delay cremations or burials. They're to take place immediately or as soon as possible. They're worried about a backlog. They're worried about those terrible scenes that we're seeing now in Europe and now in New York City happening here. We hope and pray that we're going to miss that, but they're taking all of these things into consideration. So what's happening is the burial will take place with a very few number of people. Again, only 10. Doesn't matter if this whole cemetery, only 10 are allowed to gather in that area at one time. So we're very, very restricted. And then we suggest, and the family suggests to us too, that down the road, when things are back to normal, whatever that'll be, we'll have a memorial service, celebration of life, that kind of thing.
Are you able to, as we see the restrictions in places at such as stores where they're only allowing, X amount of people. In those 10 people, can people, I guess, as a normal wake would unfold, where 5 people could come in, 5 people can leave, another 5 can come in that way, so people can come in and grieve with the family and show their and express their love to that family for the loss of that individual?
Yes, of course. Also have to keep your social distancing.
Right.
So there's no touching, there's no hugging, there's no way of showing that physically. What is happening now all over Ontario is what we're calling in the profession parking lot visitations. So what happens is you've got a funeral attendant in the parking lot. As the people arrive in the car, they get a number, and then the immediate family, say 5 of them, are allowed to stay in the funeral home, and we bring the people in one car at a time. That's the safest approach we have. Of course, every single person that enters the facility has to go through that usual barrage of tests. Are you feeling well? Have you been out of the country? Do you have a fever? For goodness sakes, use the hand sanitizer on the way into the facility and then on the way back out of the facility. We can't be too safe. You have to be so safe right now.
So how are you trying to comfort the families at this time?
Again, it's so difficult. We're so used to, as a funeral profession, to saying yes, trying to be empathetic, trying to help people. And here we are saying, no, you can't have a funeral. No, you can't have the kind of funeral you wanted anyway. And we're trying to, but Mark, in most cases, families are very understanding. They don't want to put their families or their friends in danger. So they say, okay, we understand, we get it. Um, we'll have the burial right now, and then we'll have memorial service at a later date. And most people are very understanding that way. Now, we still offer, and most funeral homes I'm sure do, we still offer bereavement counseling by telephone, obviously, or by internet. We're trying to limit the amount of physical interaction with the public, with my staff. We're very concerned about the health of my staff, because if things do get more severe, they have to be healthy to help out with the health sector. The health sector needs us to do our job to free up more beds in those institutions. So we need to be healthy to help the health sector as well.
It's a complicated scenario, to say the least. Do families bringing in, I guess, a pastor, a priest, whatever their denomination is, and having it right there inside your funeral home, because obviously they can't go to churches?
Right. So that's exactly what happens, Mark, is the family get an opportunity to spend some time with the deceased. Often, if it's a comfort to them, they'll bring their pastor or their priest in with them. They'll say some prayers. Again, they get to spend some time, as long as we can limit the number of people in that room, which is difficult. It's again a thing we can manage. It's just something that the families understand for the most part, and we just do what we can to help them. It's a terrible situation for them.
I was just going to say it's a horrifying situation where, I know my family personally is a large family outside of my siblings, brothers and sisters, many cousins, many aunts, and many uncles who I know would want to be there to help us in the grieving process. And they just can't be there right now.
You can't. I mean, not only can't you be in the funeral home, you're not even supposed to all be together in a house. So, I mean, we have to be responsible, and I'm hoping that these responsible restrictions that make us responsible will help us get through this. I mean, if we can flatten that curve, as everybody keeps telling us, maybe we can get through this with a minimal number of deaths. I mean, unfortunately, Mark, as you probably know from the news, this horrible COVID-19 has found its way into some of our seniors' residences and institutions, and that is going to be devastating for those families. They haven't been able to see their loved one, and now this. I mean, they're worried about them. Are they sick? They'll find out from the nurses that they're fine, that kind of thing, but they have to feel the whole time they're worried about this COVID-19.
Anything